It was supposed to be the happiest moment of his life. A carefully planned proposal, months in the making, friends hiding nearby, cameras ready, a future he had already imagined. But in less than 10 seconds, everything fell apart. And what happened next, no one saw coming. To outsiders, their relationship looked perfect. They met through mutual friends. He was charming, attentive, consistent. She was focused, independent, cautious. They looked good together, honestly. He was always posting her, always showing her off. But sometimes, it felt like he was more into her than she was into him. What no one realized was that they were not on the same page. He had already made his decision. He wanted forever, and he wasn't going to wait any longer. He organized everything, the location, the timing, even the people who would capture the moment. He told us, "This is it. She's the one." He was 100% sure. But there was one thing he didn't plan for, her answer. It happened on a quiet evening. He got down on one knee, pulled out the ring, and asked the question. She froze. You could see it on her face. Something wasn't right. Then, she shook her head. No. At first, there was silence, then confusion, then embarrassment. He just stayed there, still kneeling, like he didn't understand what just happened. But what came next was something far more unsettling. He stood up slowly, his expression changed, and in front of everyone, he made a promise, not a plea, not an apology, a threat. He said something like, "You'll regret this." And the way he said it, it didn't feel like a joke. That moment marked the end of a relationship, and the beginning of something much darker. In the days that followed, things escalated. Messages, calls, unanswered attempts to reconnect. Then, anger. He couldn't accept it. It was like rejection broke something in him. The situation went from emotional to disturbing. He began to show up uninvited. He sent messages that became increasingly aggressive. What started as heartbreak was turning into obsession. For her, it was no longer about saying no. It was about staying safe. I didn't recognize him anymore. It was like he became someone else overnight. She began documenting everything, saving messages, telling friends, avoiding places he might be, because deep down, she knew this wasn't over. Then came the moment that changed everything. An incident that forced authorities to get involved. This wasn't just emotional distress anymore. There was clear intent to intimidate. The line had been crossed. What followed was a case that raised serious questions about rejection, about entitlement, about how quickly love can turn into control. Rejection is normal, but when someone feels ownership over another person, that's where danger begins. A proposal is meant to be a beginning, but in this case, it revealed the truth, not about love, but about who someone really is when they don't get what they want. Because sometimes, the most dangerous moment is not when someone says yes, but when they say no. If you found this story disturbing, you're not alone. Stories like this happen more often than we think. Subscribe for more real-life cases that uncover the truth behind relationships, obsession, and the moments that change everything. After the rejection, after the warning, most people thought it would end there. They were wrong, because what started as heartbreak was about to turn into something far more dangerous. In the weeks that followed, his behavior changed completely. The messages didn't stop. They multiplied, from apologies to accusations to something darker. "You embarrassed me. You think you can just walk away? You'll understand soon." It wasn't love anymore. It felt like control, like he needed to win. And when he realized she wasn't coming back, he changed his approach. The first attack wasn't physical, it was calculated. Personal photos, private conversations. Suddenly, they weren't private anymore. I started getting calls, people asking questions, things only he knew. Someone had shared her information, not publicly at first, but just enough to damage, to humiliate, to isolate. This is a form of psychological retaliation. The goal isn't just harm, it's control through fear. But for him, it still wasn't enough, because she was still standing, still working, still moving on, and that he couldn't accept. He began showing up again, closer, more frequently, unpredictable. I saw him outside one night, just sitting in his car, engine off, watching. The fear was no longer digital, it was real. Then came the night that turned everything into a criminal case. She wasn't expecting anyone, but he was there. I froze. I knew it was him. Before I even checked, What happened next unfolded in minutes, but the impact would last for longer. Raised voices, a forced entry, things breaking. He crossed the line from threat to action. Authorities later confirmed this was no longer harassment. It was a targeted act, an attempt to intimidate, to dominate, to punish. There was clear intent. This wasn't spontaneous anger. It was escalation. Neighbors heard the disturbance. Calls were made, and within minutes, everything changed. When officers arrived, he didn't run. He didn't deny it. He just kept saying, "She made me do this." A statement that revealed everything. Not accountability, but blame. For her, survival came with a cost. Fear that lingered. Trust that was broken. A life permanently changed. These cases remind us rejection can expose dangerous beliefs. When someone feels entitled to another person, no becomes a trigger. It started with a proposal, a simple question, but the answer revealed something far deeper. Because love doesn't demand, it doesn't threaten, and it never seeks revenge. But when it does, it was never love to begin with. If this story shocked you, share it, because awareness can prevent the next one. Subscribe for more real-life cases that reveal the truth behind obsession, control, and the warning signs people often ignore. It started with a proposal. It escalated into obsession. And now, it had become a case. A courtroom would decide what really happened. But more importantly, who he really was. The charges were serious. Unlawful entry, criminal intimidation, harassment. Each one telling a piece of the story, but not the whole truth. These weren't isolated incidents. This was a pattern, one that escalated step by step. For the prosecution, this was about control turning into crime. For the defense, it was something else entirely. They didn't deny everything. Instead, they tried to explain it. He was emotionally overwhelmed, rejected in a humiliating way. He wasn't thinking clearly, not thinking clearly, or refusing to accept reality. This is common in cases like this, shifting responsibility away from intent and onto emotion. But the evidence told a different story. Message after message, saved, time-stamped, undeniable. "You'll regret this. If I can't have you, this isn't over." The timeline showed escalation. This wasn't a single mistake, it was a series of choices. Photos, call logs, witness statements, and one key detail that changed everything. Hidden within the evidence was something no one expected. A recording. It was recovered from his own device. A private voice note, recorded days before the incident. "I'll make sure she never forgets me, one way or another." This wasn't impulsive. It was planned. The entire room changed after that. You could feel it, the weight of it. The narrative shifted instantly, from emotional reaction to calculated intent. That recording removed doubt. It established mindset, and that's critical. After days of testimony, the court reached its decision. Guilty on multiple counts. A verdict that reflected not just what he did, but how far he was willing to go. This case highlights a dangerous belief that rejection is something to retaliate against. But even after the verdict, one question remained. Why? For some individuals, rejection isn't just disappointment. It's a threat to identity. And in extreme cases, they respond with control or punishment. What looked like love was never love. It was possession. And when possession was denied, it turned into destruction. A proposal should mark the beginning of something beautiful. But in this case, it exposed something hidden. Because the truth is, you don't truly know someone when things go right. You find out who they are when they hear the word no. And sometimes, that answer can save your life. If this story impacted you, share it, because recognizing the warning signs can make all the difference. Subscribe for more real-life stories that reveal the truth behind obsession, control, and the moments that change everything.